So, beginning our day, it was really nice to be visiting these last few days for the Katina. It's always quite meaningful to touch into this place where I spent a year and a half and have touched in from time to time since and before. And very grateful for this space, for Longpo Pasano and Longpo Amaro for creating it, and for all my monastic brothers for holding it. And I think what comes to mind visiting is the sense of quiet. Up in Seattle at Clear Mountain, I'm very much in the public realm often and speaking a lot, interacting a lot. And granted, there's a lot of that at the Katina, but you can kind of lose a sense of the power of a real humility and quiet. It's something I try to keep in mind, but to come back here where I see some of my brothers, junior and senior, holding that quiet humility. In Christian circles, they talk about two scopes or levels of time. There's kairos, which is deep or religious time, and chronos, which is worldly time. And I know Master Hua or Ajahn Amaro once just had a dream in which Master Swan Hua came and said, bright, loud, and mobile is the false, subtle and indistinct is the true. And that clockwork and the mechanisms of chronos, of bright, loud, and false, they're so insidious when we're out in the world. And to come in and touch into that subtle and indistinct kairos, that sense of quiet humility and practice and effacement, like in the Saleka Sutta, it reminds me of its power. And I think we all have that experience of coming into a new situation, especially with senior teachers who were vaguely, who we both love and are slightly terrified of, and just turning into a bit of a half cartoon version of ourselves. It's the personality manifests so blatantly, and on one level there's a sense of embarrassment when that happens, but on another level it's so useful to see that manifest side of the personality contrasted against the brothers and sisters here also in the lay form who just are kind of practicing in quiet. So I consider that such a valuable touchstone. And then to see that same quiet of kairos manifested in Longpo Pasano and Longpo Viradhamma, who it's only the second time I've gotten to encounter him in person, but there's that sense of quiet underlying all their words. I sense that with Longpo Sumedho, Longpo Sucitto, and Longpo Viradhamma as well. And yeah, I'm reminded of a sutta where the Buddha speaks about one who develops the liberation of the heart through the signless. It's like a king and his army and ministers and entourage and drums passing into a woodland, and all the crickets go quiet. And it's like the kilesa, the defilements suddenly become quiet. And then when they leave again, that army, the crickets take up again, the kilesa reemerge. But I love that analogy because the Buddha, speaking about the liberation of the heart through the signless, that quiet, as this, this entourage of ministers and kings, it just speaks to how loud that silence speaks when you hold it. And just last night at tea time, Ajahn Chunda was talking about one of his early years where he was criticized for making the oatmeal way too sweet and and just didn't react. And for him, it just seemed like an embarrassing moment, but others really came up afterwards and were like, wow, that was amazing. You didn't react. And said without any, he was speaking about it without a sense of conceit, just in the sense of we forget how powerful a statement quiet is. And I think the only time you really hear it is when there's a resonating body, like in a violin or like in a monastery where that space is held and framed, like a cathedral with its walls holds out the sound of dust or the sound of animals passing in dust, and you just have room suddenly for the rose of a stained glass window to bloom on the floor, and liturgy to rise slowly into the air, and those subtle notes that we've been forgetting all this time in the static of the world to suddenly be heard again. So I'm so grateful for that, and it's humbling. And then just for us to keep in mind what that space of silence feels and looks like as we step back into the world, which right now will be very loud, and that we've chosen a different song to follow and a different note to tune ourselves to, a deeper one, a higher order patterning, and that the world needs that. It's so heartening and a refuge. And so I hope others can emerge into the world with that sense of silence still in them. There's a poem I love where it talks about heaven carrying heaven like two splinters in your arms, and something about that seed of silence remaining with us as we emerge into the world. I'll try to hold that as well. So yeah, humbled and grateful for the time here. And thank you to my brothers, and gratitude.